Welcome back to the Scrum Bags Rugby Podcast. Week 5 of Super Rugby Pacific is run and done. The Western Force have gone to New Zealand, to Napier to be specific, and have flown the Aussie flag proud. The Waratahs have been dudded by refs yet again in their loss to the Queensland Reds. The Brumbies have gone to Fiji and absolutely dropped the ball big time. All this and more to come up on Scrum Bags Rugby Podcast this week.
Hearing from the crowds that you're tough as woodpecker.
Apologising for kicking a drop goal. Max Jorgensen, no, he didn't. Oh my goodness me. Ross there, Ross. He's got the record. Tom Wright, just too good. This is ecstasy for Wallabies fans.
Welcome back to the Scrum Bags Rugby Podcast. We are your one-stop shop for everything Aussie rugby. I'm your host, Mitch. With me, as always, is co-host Lachie. Now, Lachie, it was the podcast rivalry, the Scrum Bag Shield that was played over the weekend, and a bet is a bet. So if you're tuning into YouTube, you will be able to see I'm sitting here in probably the most horrible design jersey ever made to Super Rugby history, which is a Queensland Reds one. And but as a Waratahs fan, I must be humble in the defeat that was the Waratahs going down to Queensland Reds on Saturday evening. Controversy and everything in that game.
Oh, it doesn't get more controversial. And fair play to you. You're rocking the Reds jersey. You look good in maroon too. I'm proud to say. It looks like one of the old Dynasty kits. So power to you. I was actually going to have to go to Rebel and grab myself a Tahs jersey should the worst thing happen. And that's a Tahs win at Suncorp. But somehow the Reds held on. And you're right, it's not without controversy. We have had so much feedback on all our socials, Mitch, about the key incident that happened in that game. We're going to talk about it. It is the Triston Reilly no try. I'm not sure how soon you're ready to rip off that Band-Aid, but we had over 1,000 people get in touch, whether it's via the poll, whether it's via the DMs, having their say. And you'll know what we're talking about if you're listening to this podcast. 74th minute, rather. Triston Reilly goes for an amazing acrobatic put down to put his side up 22-19, and it's called no try. Here are the results of our poll, Mitch. So you can feel vindicated here. Out of 1,114 responses, 58% say that is a try. That is not just a slim majority. That's a big win. And Tahs fans are upset.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? We talk about rugby all the time. We talk about involvements from TMO and how great this game can be, and then we find ways to absolutely shoot ourselves in the foot. I feel like the last few weeks we've been talking about how referee involvement has probably not been up to scratch, and we're trying to get rid of the TMO in games. But why are we going to find reasons to not award tries? Like if you watch that in real time, as the referees did, Ben O'Keefe on the spot. What's his name? It's touchy. Anyway, not Ben O'Keefe, the Kiwi touchy. Nick Berry was on the sideline as well. Both of them said that's a try. Let's send it up to double check. And the TMO spends minutes looking through it to find some minuscule reason to not award the try, to say that it was grounded both in goal and then on the chalk. So it's simultaneous. It's out. And, I mean, the Waratahs have posted on their socials to say that it looked like the angle of the ball was placed in field. Like, is anyone upset if we award that try and don't go to the TMO? Like, that's the question. Is anyone actually going to look at that under a microscope if that's just play on, award the try, and let's get back and kick the conversion?
Only if you're north of Coolangatta. I think... and a lot of people have pointed this out, both in commentary, through our socials as well. The angle of the ball does make it look like it's grounded in the try zone without touching paint just before it hits the sideline. You all know, listening, that I'm a mad Queensland fan. I thought that was a try. I thought it was an incredible put down from Triston Reilly, who deserved the try after the incredible game he had at 13. And it felt like that's the kind of tries that we should be putting on a highlight reel and celebrating in rugby union. Rival codes do it so well, and I think we've probably just got that one wrong, unfortunately, especially given Ben O'Keefe did send it up as a try. Of course, Reds fan, stoked that it wasn't. We're going to win the game, but it was a huge moment, and it really was a momentum swing.
No, it was, and we'll talk about the game and what the ramifications of that decision was in a little bit, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more around it sets a dangerous precedent in a lot of reasons going forward in this game, that if we are going to analyze every single try that's scored, and tries like this particularly, like if we could look at every single try that was scored, I'm sure there's, if you, to the try that Carter Gordon scores afterwards, and I'm not saying this wasn't a try in any way, but if you freeze frame and slow down and look in slow-mo, I don't know if he grounded it. Or if he did, it like the question is, like, are we going to look at every single try scored? And you look at those ones where there's a maul or a scrum or a ruck right on the try line and players get over and the referee awards it. We're not looking at those for, is it grounded? Is it on the chalk? All of this sort of stuff. Like, it's just, it's a good try. It looks really good. It's sexy from a terms of a social media promotion perspective. Just award it. And if there is a shot out there, like the Waratahs have shared, that makes it look like the ball is on the grass in the try line and not on the line, why has the TMO then overturned it?
Yeah, like, especially when it's gone up as a try.
Yeah. Like, are we rushing the process? It's just, it's frustrating. Anyway, let's leave it at that. I think it's a try. You think it's a try. Everyone other than the diehard Reds fans thinks it's a try. For the sake of Super Rugby, it would have been an awesome try because we could have had it as Try of the Year contender. We could have had it on social media. We could have it on highlights reels, but now we can't because it actually wasn't a try and it doesn't count for anything. But let's talk about the game itself. And, 65, probably 70 minutes of that game was just a real slog. And it probably wasn't what we were expecting, or the lead into what a New South Wales Waratahs versus Queensland Reds derby game can be. 7-all was the score at the 70th minute, and no points scored from, was it 15th minute of the game until the 70th minute.
Oh, would you probably put a little bit of mayo? It was to the 56th, but you're right. Like, it was a huge amount of time when nothing was doing. Like, handling was appalling. Conditions were great at Suncorp, and neither side seemed to be able to hang on to the peel. It was so frustrating. Even up in the commentary box, they're going, what's doing out there? Why can't these paid athletes, highly paid, highly skilled athletes, hang on to the Gilbert? But then it just exploded. Like, as soon as Ioane Moananu went over from a really nice rolling maul, it went bananas. There were some great tries, and obviously Reilly's would have been one of them and probably should have been. But what the Tahs managed to do to get, who was it? It was Harry Potter over the line with that sort of like weird shin kick after a chip and chase. He's sort of sliding, doing a bit of a soccer striker impression that got Potter over. Carter Gordon races away with one. And then like it just got blown up completely with Filippo Dalgunu going up the middle to put Isaac Henry away. It turned from possibly the worst game of the year into one of the best.
Yeah, those last 10 minutes are definitely, if you've only got 10 minutes of time to catch this game, watch those. I don't think you'd even find many highlights for the stand 20-minute replay in that one. It probably goes for 12 minutes. The first half particularly I found quite interesting in that what we saw in the first round of the competition with the Waratahs hosting the Reds in Sydney was that the Waratahs attack looked really good and the Reds defence looked pretty shitty. What we saw in this game, though, was the complete opposite of that. The Reds' defence looked immense. Like the Reds were keeping the Tahs out, were sending them back. The Tahs had something like 60%, 70% possession in that first half, yet they couldn't do anything with it. They didn't have anyone that was able to break the line. Their big ball carriers just weren't being dominant. The Reds were showing up. They were making their tackles. They were putting in big contact and forcing the Waratahs back. And so for outside the two tries that were scored, outside of that, that first 40 minutes definitely felt like it was just big ball carriers from the Waratahs hitting up that, trying to get gain line and the Reds denying them. And not much else was happening. And some pretty poor kicking decisions thrown in there from both teams as well.
It just felt messy, didn't it? You've nailed that on the possession front. It was actually 66-34 in favour of the Tahs that first half, and they had the lion's share of territory as well. But when you look at the tackle stats from that first half, Mitch, the Reds have gone to make 86 tackles in the first half alone. They've already doubled the Tahs with 42. So it was a huge defensive shift. They also conceded twice as many penalties. But again, the Tahs were insistent that they wanted to press for tries and not looking at polls. It's something that's been picked up through Super Rugby already this year. It is the least amount of penalty shots, and neither side were interested at all in the three in that first half. They really wanted to put the squeeze on. I thought the Tahs did a really good job around the set piece of disrupting the Reds, but for some reason the attack just didn't quite click as it has maybe in those first 2 rounds. Obviously, not much doing for the Tahs against the Canes, but it looked stilted, and I thought the Reds actually did quite a good job of denying Jorgensen ball. They really rushed up, put pressure on him. They said they were going to target him, and they managed to sort of stop them before they got a hit of steam.
Yeah, in some ways, it was a better performance from the Waratahs that first half than what we saw against the Canes last week. But quite rightly, as you highlighted there, like to score 7 points in a half of footy with that much possession, like you're obviously not doing something right. And the attack looked stilted. It just looked like the Reds knew what they were doing and knew how to get up and shut the ball down. I thought, in terms of individual contributions, I thought Triston Reilly in the centres was a good move. The thing that I don't remember if I put it on our group chat or just was texting this to my brother during the game, but I thought was quite ironic is all of the hate that's come out in Joseph Akuso-Suaalii for the last few weeks around being the 13 player and not having the impact in the game. I actually thought the Waratahs, Triston Reilly to his credit, played well, I thought, but the Waratahs used him exactly the same as they've used Joseph Akuso-Suaalii in previous weeks. There was one moment or a few moments in the first half where the Waratahs were hot on attack in the Reds 22 and Reilly ran the exact same dummy line that Suaalii's been running. And so it was like, it's it's just carbon copy of what we've seen. So I don't know if a lot of the hate that's now come out against Suaalii is solely should be shot at him, particularly. I think it's the way that the attack system is being run at the Waratahs, that they're preferring to use their 13 more as a decoy option instead of being a link play to the outside backs. But yeah, so I thought Reilly was good, and I thought Debrasini coming into 10 was positive in that even though the Waratahs weren't getting over the gain line and weren't doing a heap in attack, they didn't seem to panic. And so that was one thing that in weeks gone by and years gone by, when you've got an inexperienced fly half who is, your forwards are getting beaten, you're not getting gain line, you're still trying your attacking structures, but it's not working. You start to panic and you start to look at what happens next. The list of players that comes to mind, you've got Jack Bowen, you've got Will Harrison, you've got all these guys, Mason Gordon, not Mason Gordon. Anyway,
Mac Mason.
Mac Mason, that's it.
There you go.
These guys who have been in and out of that number 10 jerseys for the Waratahs, in a game like this, they would start to do erratic things and throw possession away and let the opposition into the game. Debrasini, to his credit, didn't do that. And even though the Waratahs weren't making meters and weren't scoring points, they still kept trying. And the fact that they had that much possession, I think, was a credit to him.
Yeah, and he kicked pretty well out of hand too. Like Gordon dominated from the box, but like I think you've just got more kick options there with Debrasini. Plus, like Harvey, I was really impressed with Sid Harvey's first start. Like a little bit of rust, but it's so important having that big boot. He was physical as well on the edge. Like I didn't think any of the Tahs backs necessarily played badly, but it didn't click. There wasn't a cohesion, and how can that be when there have been so much changes? What was there, 6 changes to the starting side? From the Hurricanes game, a new starter at 10, Harvey's first start, Hendren back in the side. Like it didn't feel like it was like a B side, but it was rusty. And yep. I think that's down to both time in the saddle and also the pressure that the Reds were able to impose. But they didn't look great either. Like that first half was absolutely shocking from the Reds, the way that they were just failing to gel. I think particularly through the mids, I thought there would be a bit more continuity now that they've been able to run that team a couple of times, like Henry and Flute backing back from last week. But like really, it was just after the 6th minute when they put up the bomb and Wilson cleans up the crumbs from Campbell, they didn't look like threatening the line at all. It was chalk and cheese to what we saw later in that second half.
Well, it almost felt like their game plan was, let's let the Waratahs attack us and just soak up the pressure. And that might have been their plan for 5 or 10 minutes, and it just ended up becoming all of the first
dragging
half.
out.
It just was like, oh crap, we can't get our hands on the ball. I think there was reasons for that. Like Ben O'Keefe in this game, not bashing him as a referee, but like the breakdown was just a mess. Like he was not rewarding. He was not rewarding Fraser McWright at all. And there was a few times where I thought was very hard done by to get over the ball, and he's get blown for a penalty for some reason, either not coming in the right way or hands on the ground and things. It was like, no, he won that. He should be rewarded there. And so it almost felt like the Reds started just like, we're not winning this breakdown contest. Let's just not engage there and just try and soak up the pressure. One thing I wanted to talk about before we move across and look at the Reds a little bit more, in particular that last 10, 15 minutes from them, is some of the decision-making from the Waratahs in this game. And Atco rightly called out on our social media posts, and me in particularly commenting on that the Waratahs in the last, 6 minutes, 5 minutes of the game, get a penalty pretty much in front, and they choose to go to the line, which they ultimately turn over, and then the Reds kick it out. At that point, you're down by I think they were down by
well, that was the margin. They were down by 9. Yeah, as it was for full time.
So at that point, you have the opportunity to kick 3 and then reset and try and go again. They ended up losing the game by 9 points, and they didn't score a point from that. And so that's frustrating. That's really poor rugby IQ from the Waratahs to not take those points and there's enough time on the clock to get back down there and have another crack, roll the dice, and for them to just end up not even getting a bonus point, a losing bonus point, which is what they would have done had they kicked that. You could see Dan McKellar. There's a shot of the coach's box going up there, and Dan McKellar is screaming down his into his microphone like he probably didn't even need it. I think I was sitting at home in Sydney and I could hear him yelling through the TV at his players. Like, that was just really poor. And on a broader context, I felt like there were some decisions just across the game plan that just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Like for mine, James Hendren was kicking for touch and was the touch finder, but we've got Debrasini starting who can kick, 60 meters on a good day, while we got a young bloke in James Hendren taking the touch finders, and he wasn't bad, but he wasn't getting the meters that we come to expect from a touch finder.
Yeah, I think you probably nailed it with the decision not to go for 3 late, because the losing bonus point is everything, right? Not only do you secure that and wrap it up, but you get a chance to go again without the pressure of having to score a try late in the piece. I mean, you'd still have to, but I think you've got something and you need to take something out of Super Rugby. It's such a sprint. Like the Reds, I think as soon as they had that 9-point buffer, they knew that they could just get away with murder, try and shut it down. If they copped a yellow card, so be it. If they copped a penalty, so be it. But the Waratahs didn't play smart enough. The Ben O'Keefe was pinging the Reds for killing the ruck time and time again in those last 5 minutes, and they were. They wanted to slow it, but they weren't. I don't think the Tahs played smart footy late in the piece.
No.
And McKellar was rightly blowing up. So it's tough. Like the Reds did enough late in the piece. Like there was a really big turnover from that last maul. Like Vice Latu, young bloke, goes through, swims, gets over it. That was a massive play. And a couple of times the Reds you saw through that game were holding off on the maul and then like playing the offside line. It's sort of like like circa Italy against Eddie's England and no offside line. It was a really interesting tactic that came off a couple of times. But it felt like the Tahs really lost their head in the last little bit there. And I guess that's as a result of the pressure coming from those sort of 3 tries in the last little while from the Reds. But yeah, it was not a great finish from the visitors.
Well, it very much felt like the momentum shifted and the air got punched out of the Waratahs' lungs from that no try to Triston Reilly. Like when they scored that, they were up and they were into it. They'd get ahead on the scoreboard with 15 or so minutes to go at that point, and you could see that the team were excited. And then as soon as the try gets disallowed, like they pretty much went into their shells from that point on, and the Reds scored 2 quick tries afterwards. That try that Isaac Henry scores, Filipe Daugunu sets up, like that was, it's not so much off the training run, but that was just shit-house defense from the Waratahs. Filipe Daugunu ran through and around about 7 Waratahs forwards and 4 backs. Like there was pretty much not a Waratahs player on the field that he didn't get around. It was pretty poor, and Henry on the spot to get that offload and to score the try. Like really good try to the Reds, but shit-house defense from the Waratahs.
Well, it was opportunistic, wasn't it? Like the clearance kick has gone deep and it goes into the back corner. Trayvon Pritchard's there. He wants to play into the midfield, and the first line of Tahs defense is actually really good. They get up, they pressure, they force Henry to sort of offload back over his shoulder, which was quite risky. And suddenly there was just no one in the middle of the field. So they pressed up left and right, and Filipe Daugunu looks up. He's got 2 forwards ahead of him, and he says, "Oh, I've got this." And he didn't even have to step, really. Like he just gassed it, threw a bit of a goosey down, breaks 4 tackles, and Isaac Henry has the presence of mind to get out of that tackle on the offload and back up, like lung-busting stuff. So that was a huge play. And then like Carter Gordon, that was more toe than I thought he had. He was 75 minutes. I did not think he had the gas to get around Harry Potter, but he made the Wallabies winger look like he was running through quicksand. Like, I think we forget how much of an athlete Gordon is, regardless of what you think of his, goal kicking or his capacity to be a Test 5'8". He's got wheels. He's a big unit, and he really showed it.
I really hope that this becomes a sliding doors moment for Australian rugby. Like, I don't, as a Waratahs fan, it hurts me to see Carter Gordon score that try, get around Potter and absolutely, win the race to the try line. But from an Australian rugby perspective, if this is the spark that Carter Gordon needs to sort of excel and give him confidence and to take ownership of that Wallabies 10 jersey and start to put in a really good shift for the rest of this season, then as an Australian rugby fan, I mean, I've got to be excited for that. Like, the try that he scores last week after the buzzer to win the game for the Reds against the Brumbies, and then he does it again this week for the Waratahs. Like, he's playing really well at the moment, and he's getting more and more confidence. And I think, like, the injuries that he's had in the preseason, you could sort of tell these first few rounds that he's not trusting his body yet to just go at full pace. And so when he saw that space open and he just, pinned his ears back and went for it, I think that's really exciting to see that a player of his caliber and his talent is now taking the ball to the line with confidence and is backing himself to get to the line there. And he'll do that more and more as the season progresses. And he had to come off, got subbed straight afterwards because he looked like he was gassed at that point. But really good involvements from him.
Yeah, I think that's what you've nailed right there. It's the carries. It's the carry threat. And Australian rugby 10s, when they're at their best, are a triple threat. They are running at the line. They are creating space for others with their passing game, and they can also kick. Like, think of like the peak sort of Bernie Larkham ghosting through, Quade Cooper with the footwork. Bernard Foley at his best was a running threat too. Same with Noah Lolesio. But just we didn't get to see a lot of it, but he was always at his best carrying. Carter Gordon carries 6 times. Each are really effective through this game. He picks his moments well. He's able to bust a couple of tackles. He finishes up with, I think, 3 tackle busts, but his post-contact meterage, the fact that he is a big unit and carries for 56 metres after impact is not something that we've had in Australian rugby for a while, like a 10 who busts the line when he needs to. So that's hugely exciting. And you're right, when he's playing with confidence, if he's got a bit of swagger, he is going to be a very dangerous prospect down the line. So hopefully it's sliding doors for Australian rugby. Reds fans obviously want to see him humming in that position. And geez, doesn't it make things interesting when, incumbent Wallaby Lions tourist Tom Liner is back and available for selection? It's going to be very dicey at the Reds in a couple of weeks.
Well, I almost want to jokingly say Tom Who. Like, we haven't seen him for so long now that it's the Carter Gordon show in Queensland at the moment. And from an Australian rugby perspective, I'm not mad about that. Like, the competition that this brings, having all of your fly halves fit, like, this will be round 6 next week, and it'll be the first time in 2026 that the Reds and Les Kiss as a coaching team has the first opportunity to pick from anyone. He's got all of them fit and ready to go, which is good. But it's taken them 6 rounds to get to that point, and a disrupted preseason as well. So the competition will help. And I think, if anyone, I think Harry McLaughlin-Phillips probably suffers from that and drops out of a 23 with Tom Liner coming in. But yeah, it's a positive thing, and it's an exciting thing to see. And the form, though, that the form that Carter's in, he doesn't lose that 10 jersey, because if he's not playing these last 2 games, the Reds don't win.
Yeah, well, they're cooked without him. He is their match winner. He's the man who goes over for them in back-to-back games and does it. So, I mean, hugely exciting for him. It does put pressure on Tommy Liner. He needs to earn his spot back. Tough chance coming up. Round 6, I think the Reds are off to Fiji. So, it'd be a hell of a game against a really physical side if they're going to bring Liner back for that. I'm not sure if they will, but hugely exciting. And, HMP, he had a bit of a tough game against the Tahs in round 1, but he's solid. He feels very much on the outer, unless sort of Tommy Liner decides to look elsewhere when his contract expires this year. So very, very interesting times coming up in the playmakers there. I just very quickly before we sort of move to other areas, while we're on the Reds, Isaac Henry has been so good the past 2 weeks at 12. Like, Hunter Paisami has got all the Wallabies credentials, but Zachy Henry's been off the park more often than not for the past 2 or 3 years. He's been solid, really solid in that 12 jersey. And I think Hunter's probably going to find it pretty hard to crack back into that side. It's a good problem for Les Kiss to have. And the matchup, I thought, between him and Walton, aside from being very stilted in the first half, was a really good display of like that next tier of inside centres. It is such an area of need in Australian rugby to have elite 12s. Zachy Henry feels like the kind of player that could go up the next level. I'm not sure if he's there yet. I'm certainly not going to crowd him in a Wallabies jersey anytime soon, but he's very solid and dependable. And if anything, that's what you want your 12s to be.
I think the one thing for mine watching this game and seeing Walton versus Henry is it's like it doesn't instill all that much confidence though in that the next guys are ready. Like if Ikitau's injured and Crichton's not ready yet, like who is going to play 12? And Hunter Paisami is currently not available he's injured and he's back hopefully next week. Like you said, needs to crack through the Reds 23 to be able to then be selected for the Wallabies and whatnot. But like they were both serviceable and they were both good, but they're not winning a Bledisloe Cup or a World Cup final, either of those guys in a 12 jersey. And so it makes this a little bit like they do well in probably an Australia A jersey at this point, but I don't think either of them are that close to a Wallabies call up. And it does start to make you wonder, geez, our stocks underneath that first choice 23 is a little bit, and it always has been for the last few years, is pretty shallow in the centres.
Yeah, it's thin, and then you look to like someone like a Hamish Stewart who was benched over in the Force game. He's had a couple of runs in the Wallaby 12 jersey now. Do they consider? I mean, and that's the thing, right? Outside of those guys, it's really Len Ikitau's first, second, and third, and it's not even his best position. So we got an interesting battle coming up, and I think why the Henry conundrum's so interesting is that Hunter Paisami is probably the guy behind Ikitau at the moment, at least on like the general pecking order at 12s. If he can't break back ahead of Henry, if Henry hangs on to this opportunity and Kiss is the incoming Reds coach, that makes things very interesting for what a midfield looks like. Bearing in mind, obviously, we don't have an Angus Crichton as an option, and let's be honest, he needs time to actually play a bit of union before he gets thrown straight in. Yep. It's going to be fascinating to see who is wearing that 12 in the Nations Championship. But we're probably getting a little far ahead of ourselves. Yeah. And I'll just quietly celebrate the Scrumbag Shield for another week.
Yeah, you keep it nice and safe until we get it back in the semis later this year. One last thing I'll say before we get off this game, because I know we've nearly spoken for Waratahs Reds for 30 minutes of the opening half of this podcast this week. One thing, though, that is becoming evident from the Waratahs these past few seasons, both positive and negative. The positive is that their discipline this year has been so much better. And the last few weeks particularly, they've given away less than sort of 6 or 7 penalties a game. They're sort of averaging around 5 to 7 penalties, which is pretty unheard of. And their opposition is giving away double that. They're forcing them into that. One of the things, though, that we're not doing as a team in the Waratahs this year is actually utilising that and playing smartly through that. And so scoreboard pressure is such an important thing in Super Rugby Pacific and rugby at the current time. If you look at the world rugby sort of landscape at the moment, the Waratahs and anyone in the competition, like you highlighted before, no one's taking penalty shots. But the Waratahs are getting that many options through scrums and they're through penalties. And a lot of them are happening in the opposition 22 because that's where the Waratahs, or half, because that's where the Waratahs have been playing. And they're just turning down those opportunities week in, week out. And they're losing games now, and they're losing by not that many points. And so when do you actually start as a coaching team to say, let's actually just bank the 3 and go back and have another crack at this? Because we've had 3 goes at it now, and we haven't crossed the line yet. And so that's one thing that's just this Waratahs team, they're not playing smart rugby. They're just still trying to play that old-fashioned rugby of let's kick to the line, let's try and score off them all, and they're not executing that either. And so they're getting these opportunities and they're coming out with nothing. And so that's when you start to realize, when do you actually start to tweak your attack plan to actually start to utilize those opportunities you're getting, get points, start to accrue those, and put pressure, scoreboard pressure on your opposition.
Yeah, well, 3 is better than none, right? And the platform that the Tahs scrum continues to set against everyone's preseason expectations has been really impressive, right? So if Dan Botha and Tom Lambert put the squeeze on as they did against the Reds and give you opportunities, why not? Why not take the 3? I immediately think of the Wallabies-Argentina game in Sydney, where the Wallabies completely blew them off the park tries-wise, but the RGs pop over 7 penalties and win the game comfortably. So it's just like it's frustrating, and I would like to see people bank easy, solid 3s whenever they're on offer, because why not? Like it was a classic John Eales mentality. If it was inside the 15s and inside the 40 metres, put it on the tee, because you're going to hit it more often than not outside of that plug the corner. I don't think it's a stretch too far, especially when you start winning games off the tee, to actually back what it's about.
And you got Debrasini there who can kick it from halfway. Like he's almost like a current Reece Hodge, who at altitude, like if you've got a penalty in your own half within that 10 meters, you're like, we'll have a crack. Just have a crack. Take a few cheeky 3s. Let's move on though. Let's go across to Napier, where the Western Force went across and played the Hurricanes. Now, final score in this one was 23-31. Now, that scoreline did blow out a little bit in the end there, but I feel like the actual game and the way that the Western Force played this made it feel a little bit closer than it was, and they're probably a little bit hard done by, in my perspective, to not come away with a losing bonus point.
Mitch, I was so up and about for the Force. I thought they were doing so well. They go into halftime up. Just remember, against all expectations, the Canes coming off that huge win against the Tahs, Force on the 3rd of their 3-game tour in New Zealand, and there's lots of homeboys from Hawke's Bay in that Hurricanes team. Force played really well. The first half, they scrapped and they fought for everything. Across the park, Derby Lancaster was excellent. Ben Donaldson pulled strings. The forwards worked so hard. But just like, I think the damn wall broke. They got out to an 11-5 lead, I think, shortly after halftime. And then the Hurricanes just went to a completely different level, the level that I think we fear and know that they can go to. It was pretty convincing in the end, and obviously a couple of late tries from the Force. But man, I feel so bad for the Force not being able to bank any bonus points on this tour. Obviously, they got the win against Moana, but a late try stripped away the 5 points from them, and to go down single digits to both the Hurricanes and the Highlanders without taking anything home, that stings.
Yeah, it does. But I think looking at what this tour was going to be on paper moving into it, I think if we were questioning whether they'd come away with a win. So the fact that they've come away with 1 win from 3 and 2 losing bonus points would have been awesome for them and would have set up the second half of their season perfectly. But to get 1 win out of 3, I think is a credit to them. Look, Western Force in 2026, geez, I've got to say, out of all of the Australian teams, maybe the Brumbies are starting to get there, and we'll get to them in a minute. But they are the most frustrating team to watch.
It's hard.
They can be the best in 1 minute. Like the tries that Derby Lancaster scores from nothing, it just that was crazy. They have the ability this year in 2026 with the outside backs that they have to score points from anywhere and to score them quickly. But they also, which was most frustrating, just not off, go to complete sleep. Like that try that they gave away from the Hurricanes, where the Hurricanes get a penalty, take a quick tap and pass it out wide for Brad Shields to go over untouched. Like that was so stupid from the Force. Like they give away a full-arm penalty and then just all go to sleep and expect like the Canes to either take a shot at goal or go to scrum. Like how often has it happened in the last few weeks where the Western Force have been in the game, scores are tight, they're competing well, and then they just go to sleep for 5 minutes and that the other position score 2 or 3 easy tries. Like they get that out of their game and all of a sudden they start to challenge teams.
I feel like Jeremy Williams sounded broken record-ish again after this game, because it was a similar situation to the Highlanders, right? Like they got themselves into position in Dunedin to win that game. They go ahead with 11 minutes to play. And they were ahead in the second half here. Obviously, there's so much firepower with the Canes, but they just switched off. And Williams is going, we got punched in the nose again. They just came out stronger in the second half. Why? Like, you're a professional team, and we're not doubting the heart and the fight, but it was so frustrating to see them slip away from another position to win on the road in New Zealand. That's like double points getting it over there, and it just slipped away from them. But you nailed it with Derby Lancaster. Like he was a meter-eating machine. He was so good and showed our cases that actually maybe he could have more than one Wallabies kept to his name down the line. Again, Curtly Beale in the centres, he was solid. He looked really good. There were lots of articles in the lead up being like, he's beefed up, he's stronger, he's thicker. He played well. Like his 60 minutes were really solid. And again, like tireless stuff in the forwards, but just like I don't know what they can do aside from just switch on. And that seems a bit trite to say to a professional team.
Did you think that like going into 2026, if we rewind the podcast 7 weeks or whatever, did you think that Curtly Beale's going to start in the 12 jersey against the Canes in Napier?
I mean, I don't think I was putting the house on it, but we saw enough of him through Super Rugby Oz, and Chrono was pretty high on him being a midfield option. So I guess maybe, but I thought that jersey was Hamish Stewart's.
Yeah, like in our talks in the preseason, like we were pretty confident that Curtly Beale was a 23 jersey, if that. Like that he's almost like there as a player coach at the moment, that he's there to just give experience to the new blokes coming in, and that he play 23 and maybe play 15, 20 minutes off the bench when needed. But to his credit, like he's played really well the last 2 weeks, and he looked really good this week in that 12 jersey for the Western Force. The touches that he's having in attack and the link play that he's having with the outside backs is what, like, I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but he performed much better than the other Aussie 12s did this round. And not to say that he's going to be should be in the Wallabies or anything, but if we're picking our team of the week of who was the best performing 12 in Australia, I'd say Curtly Beale's up there.
I'd say he definitely was the best performing 12 from the Australian teams this week. And no, it doesn't mean that he starts at 12 against Ireland in a couple of months. But he did what he always does. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm joking.
But like he creates opportunities for people around him. Like that was his thing all through the Wallabies. Like during his heyday, he was an amazing creator. He was a bit of a wizard with the ball. And like he's the one who's still at 37 throwing offloads, finding a soft shoulder, putting other people through holes that he creates. He is an invaluable asset. And like if you go back, and if people are keen, like please jump over to Scrumback's Patreon Extra Time. We had a great chat with Curtly Beale in pre-season about his mentality and what he wants to achieve through 2026. And he's still so hungry. He's still so competitive. And he says, yes, I want to be a part of the force and help nurture these guys, but also I want to start. I've still got it. And fair play to him. He has been really, really good on this New Zealand tour. I wouldn't move him from that position just yet.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I've been really impressed with Curtly Beale this year. I think he's really good and has been doing good things with this Force team. One other thing that I just wanted to talk about, and you highlighted him before, was Darby Lancaster. And I don't know what the go is at the moment with Australian wingers, but it feels like there's so much competition for those Wallaby spots that everyone's trying their best, but everyone in Australian rugby at the moment is rocks and diamonds. Like 1 week we're talking up how good Harry Potter's being and he's unreal and how good he is for the Tahs, and then this week, like, he was pretty average. Let's admit. Darby Lancaster has had pretty poor involvements for the Waratahs last year. Comes to the Western Force and now has two really good games for them and scoring tries and looking really dominant. From, I don't know what the go is, but 1 week we're all talking about one Australian winger, and then the next week we're talking about someone else, and then the other one goes to shit. So I'm glad I'm not a selector, because at the moment I wouldn't know who I'd be putting in an 11 jersey, but definitely 14 is Max Jorgensen's, and he's got a mortgage on it.
Well, that's what it feels like. But like, there's so many good wingers, and we've got that dearth of outside backs. I think that's why it was so interesting seeing the chat around, like, all the Lomax stuff, at the back end of last week and into this week. Like, he's another outside back, and we have so many. We've got so many. Peach, we haven't even seen Dylan Peach back in the mix, and he was our best for good chunks of 2025. Jorgo, Jesus, we've also got like. Dalguna's been really impressive. Harry Potter's sort of in and out of the mix of those fallen away. Tom Wright hasn't been cited, and he was easily our star performer through a lot of 24 and 25. So, man, I don't know. Like, I just like maybe some of these guys to be a 12, be a 13, have more competition around those areas, because that's where we need it.
Yep, definitely. Anything else on this Force game that you wanted to mention before we move across to Brumbies?
Just again, Tizano keeps doing what he's good at. I know it will be, probably McWright's gold jersey, but I absolutely love watching Carlo. Doesn't miss a tackle against the Canes. Yeah, he's going bang, bang with, I think, is he up against Karifi head-to-head in this one? And he was so solid. Shut down a lot of opportunities, got over for a couple of steals. He again reminds us that it's kind of like open sides. Wingers rather. We have so many open sides in Australia, but we're our big, dominant tight five depth, not just like the starters and the boys in the 23. It's a great problem to have.
I think one last closing point on the Western Force is they started this season, that opening game against the Brumbies was pretty poor from them. But what's quickly becoming apparent is the more they play together and the ability of Cron and his team to actually have consistency in selection, the more they play this season, the better they're looking. And we spoke about in the preseason in our sort of overview of the Western Forces season. But and Nathan Williamson highlighted it on our Extra Time podcast last week. If you haven't listened, make sure you subscribe and go and listen to that on Patreon. But they don't have to leave Australia once they get home now. And they have a really good run home. And so the better that they're looking, the more consistent the more they play, they can get these players consistent, and hopefully, touch wood, they stay injury free. Like, they're looking better and better and better every single week that they play. And so we wrote them off going to New Zealand. And I think if we look back at the scorelines, we were expecting them to lose that Hurricanes, the Highlanders game last week by like 60 points or so. And the fact that they were in it with minutes to go, to their credit, shows how close that they came to that. And then this week, I also was expecting another sort of 40, 50 point drumming, considering what the Canes had done last week to the Waratahs. To their credit, like they didn't win the game, and they weren't within winning the game within the last 5 minutes, but they were still in the game. Like, they still could have gotten close and could have got a losing bonus point. And so the more they get, I think it's exciting for Force fans, and it's exciting for Australian rugby in particular to see what this Force team can do in the second half of this competition.
Yeah, and make no mistake, I think we both thought they'd get better this year. Like, if we go back and through our preseason predictions, like, I'm the one tipping them to finish over the Tahs. But, like, to go and do,
could still happen.
Yeah, it still could. I think I'm still on, to be honest. But the the work rate over the ditch was what really impressed me. I think the first 2 rounds did the Force dirty. They're far from their best, and you're right, they're growing. It's a huge litmus test against the Chiefs in 2 weeks after their little break. That's when we're going to really see whether a rested Force side can take it to one of the competition's best at home. That's going to give us a much better indicator of where they're at.
And I know we've covered the Lomax signing on the Extra Time coverage last week, but for those that aren't subscribed to Patreon, Lachie, I'm going to ask you now. Does Zach Lomax make the Western Force 23 for that Chiefs game? In your mind?
Not sure. Not sure, to be honest. I don't think they'll rush him in from the comments that Simon Cron has made. They'd rather give him time to be an effective member of the team rather than just putting him in to put bums on seats. I'm almost inclined to put him in at 23 for bums on seats and just see what he can do as a cover. But, we're not the coaches. So the sooner we see him on the field, the better. I don't think Cronny's going to pull the trigger. What do you reckon?
What do you have to lose?
Yeah.
You're going up against the Chiefs. You're probably going to lose that one. I'd roll the dice unless he just takes like in training. We don't know. Like, unless it takes him a really long time to adjust and get his head around rucks and whatnot, and defensive positioning and patterns, which it will. Coming across from rugby league and not playing since he was like 14 or whatever, it will take him time to adjust. But at the same time, like, the Western Force faithful have been okay this season, but they're not, selling out HBF Park. So if it brings in an extra 5,000 people, then why not give it a go?
Yeah, they were very quick to point out that he played junior rugby, weren't they? After all the chat, is it funny because the league team out there are the Temora Dragons, but they've got a union team, the Temora Tuskers, which are like a walrus. And I've had a couple of great games out at Temora when I was living in that part of the world, and it's a great jersey, great brand. So shout out to the Tuskers if there's anyone listening out there.
Well, let's keep moving, and we move across now to Fiji, where the Brumbies have gone across to play the dreaded away trip to Fiji. This one was played at what was it called?
Zimbar.
Zimbar Stadium in Bula, not Bula,
Yep.
Bar. And look, to their credit, the Fiji and Drua come away victors 42-27 in this one. Now, this was a bit of a speed bump for the Brumbies in their season, and going into this competition, into this fixture, still at the top of the table. They're not there now, unfortunately, with this loss. How many changes do you know, Lachie, off the top of your head, how many changes Stephen Larkham made to his 23? It was like 11, I think.
Oh, it was a lot. I would say it's double digits. I would say from the side that narrowly went down to the Reds the week prior. I think and so many big changes in key positions, like bringing in a very new face in Darcy Breen to play tight head prop in Fiji in a mud pit was a big call. Yeah, exactly. Like that was a huge. I think he did all right, but like Nick Frost back in for his first game of the season. Toby McPherson played 78 minutes in his first start. Bags a double as well. Good on you,
Actually,
Toby.
look, we need to stop. As an Australian rugby podcast, we need to stop at this point. We have spoken this much about the Brumbies game and not given accolades to Rob Valetini. The man makes his 100th Super Rugby Pacific game this week, and I got to admit, I'm kind of pissed off on his behalf. There was no fanfare. He didn't even lead the Brumbies out. He just joined the huddle as normal, ran out behind Andy Muirhead as captain. What was that all about?
Oh, man, you took my thunder. I was going straight through the pack, but it's a great point. And honestly, I think it just highlights the kind of bloke that Bobby is. Like he is so modest and unassuming, joker around the playing group, but he's just not the kind of person that's interested in those kinds of personal accolades. And I think it's special enough for him to be able to go out, play against the Drua. It's tough to not see Kimo Valetini, his brother, named in that side, but so special to have, people that are important to him around for that game. And you're right, he does deserve a special shout out. Just to rack up 100 games of Super, playing at 6 and 8 by the age of 27, like he could make 150.
That came around so quickly. Like I don't feel like he's been around that long.
Yeah, well, he's so durable. And I think that's what surprised so many people last year at a Wallaby level was to see him battling injuries, because he has just been the Iron Man in that back row for the Brumbies for so long now. We can't find enough plaudits, and we probably don't have to, because we know what he's capable of. 2-time John Eales medalist. He goes out there, puts in 80 minutes, tops the carry meters in the forwards. He was tireless, and then defensively, he still gets through so much work. Top the tackle count as well. So how about that? In your 100th game, you top the tackles, you top the carries, and no one's batting an eyelid, because that's the standard you set for yourself. Throw in the fact that he did not miss a hit either. It just sums up Bobby V.
Yeah, and to go to Fiji and do that, you could be playing the Force, and then we talk about that, and no one bats an eyelid, because no discredit, no, not a slight to the Force at all, but these Fijian forwards, they're huge, and so it's easy to fall off a few hits there when you put shoulders on and you just get bounced off. So to go through that game and to not miss a tackle, that's big man stuff from Bob Valetini.
Yeah, bags a pilfer as well. He honestly, he was so good in this game, and it's going to get overlooked because they lost. But he was so phenomenal, and it came in a confidently and comfortably beaten side. It's the most typical Valetini performance you'll ever see, and it comes in the triple figure game. He's just awesome. He really is.
Yeah, looking forward to him getting back to Canberra. Hopefully the Brumbies can do something for him at home next week against. Actually, they go home to play the Chiefs as well, don't they?
I think so. I think the Chiefs. They got a couple of tough times coming up.
Yeah, yes, they do. But yeah, let's talk about the game though. So Stephen Larkham makes 11 changes or so to his starting 23, and so he's starting. He's 23. He's match day squad this week, and he's come out and he's spoken about how there's squad rotations, there's Wallaby rest protocols, and all kinds of things. But I've got to admit, as an Australian rugby fan, I find it pretty hard to hear. And look, I must admit, I don't hear this kind of commentary coming out of any of the other Super Rugby sides, to be honest. I feel like it comes out of the Brumbies every single year. Wallabies rest protocol, we need to make these changes. Rah, 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 rah. I don't see the Reds doing that, or hear Les Kiss talking about it, or Dan McKellar at the Waratahs. Maybe it impacts the Brumbies more because they have so many Wallabies across their starting and their best team. But the last few years, like I look back across the Brumbies' last few seasons, and I feel like the resting weeks is what's really derailed their season. Like we haven't seen consistently them just 1 week rest one player and make that change, or rest two players and have just general squad rotations throughout the season. It feels like the Brumbies just every single year they'll have one or two games throughout the season where they'll just rest all their Wallabies and just hope for the best. And this week they did that, and the Drua pants them.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people said this round one last year. They sent over a similarly undermanned side for Brumbies standards, and they got it done. So throw on the fact that they've been easily the best performing Australian side since Super Rugby went Pacific, making all the semi-finals, you'd almost say that Larkham's actually got this right and the rotations work because they're at the back end of the comp and the Reds and the Force and the Tahs are not. But it's a blow. I think it's probably a calculated risk. Like, you have no idea what Drua team you're going to face at home. Like, look at what they did to the Hurricanes in driving rain, who are a lot of people was tipped to be the title winners this year. I don't think games in Fiji, and this is going to sound rude because games in Fiji do count, but it's so unpredictable and so difficult to win there that you almost go, okay, let's gamble this. Let's protect our key players to perform at home against the Chiefs where we need to win, and a win in Fiji is a bonus. I think Bernie Larkham's probably just gone, let's give some of these guys a tough experience, especially the rookies. We're going to throw you into Super Rugby's most difficult environment. And there were so many unknowns too. Like, it was the first time they'd ever played in Bar. It went from torrential to stinking hot to raining again, like back and forward. And they still managed to land the same number of tries. I don't think the scoreline necessarily reflects how well the Brumbies did at times, but you just can't out Fiji in the wet. No teams can.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got some counterpoints for that. I guess the argument for making these changes is to rest players and to give rotation, but you still look at the bench that Stephen Larkham names in this game, and so he's got. Let me bring it up. Ryan Lonergan's on there. Declan Meredith. Who else did he have? One sec. Where's it here? Team play lineups. On the bench, we've got Blake Shop coming back. Ryan Lonergan, Declan Meredith. Like, these guys have not Shop so much. He's back from injury, wasn't he? But Declan Meredith and Ryan Lonergan, like, these guys have been the staples of what this Brumbies team has been this year and have been reliant on them. And so what ended up happening was that they ended up coming on, I think, a fair bit earlier than they initially and the coaching team expected, because the game was getting so far ahead of them. Like, both Lonergan and Meredith came on in the 50th minute. So they still played 30 minutes, nearly a full half of rugby. The argument of them being rested and getting a little bit of load management probably doesn't cut the mustard too much. And what you're seeing, though, is that the replacements for that, so Clayton Thorne and Tane Edmed, both of them together had pretty poor games. And so if you're then starting to say that we need to then look at resting these guys again later in the season, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it was the calculated risk. Almost feels it was a missed opportunity, in that because the game was getting ahead of them, they then made those changes. And to their credit, like, when those guys came on, the Brumbies looked a lot better and they started to actually score points and they started to get back into the contest. But at that point, the game was gone. The Druas had their tails up, the rain started, and then they started to play Fiji rugby, and so they kind of ran away with it at the end there. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I feel like it was a missed opportunity and they played pretty poorly. And the only thing we're really learning out of this is that Tane Edmed and Clayton Thorne probably aren't the guys that you need them to be to come on and seal a game late in the season against someone else.
But how do you know that unless they are given opportunities like this? And this is what we're talking about with the calculated risk. Like, you can't just roll out Meredith and Lonergan every time. You can't just roll out your A team because what happens in a final when they're not available? What happens in the clutch games at home that you need to win if they're not available? Like, we've been pretty critical of Tane Edmin in a lot of aspects, but he needs games like this to be tested and to determine whether he's up for that level. We're not going to be the arbiters of him getting picked in a team, but he had some tough moments in this game as well. He needs more opportunities, otherwise they just won't know. Honestly, I think come the end of the season, people aren't going to be talking about, oh no, the Brumbies should have won in Fiji if they're not in a semi-final or not in a final. They'll be talking about the home games and whether they performed in those clutch ones, because Fiji away is such an anomaly in Super Rugby Pacific, and you have no idea what you're going to get. So I think that if we look back at the end of the year, the Brumbies have made it through to the big dance. They host a final, any of those things. We're talking about the clutch moments at home. We're not talking about pouring down rain in bar and the Drua being the Drua. It seems a bit unfair to classify those kinds of games as their own area, but I almost think they're triple winning in Fiji. It's so rare and so special. And also for the Drua, like, this is the first time they've ever beaten the Brumbies. Congratulations to them. They've really turned it around this year after a lot of people watched their first game against Moana and watched them implode at home. They have flipped it on its head the past 2 weeks, and power to them.
I just hope we don't come to a situation where the Brumbies need, a point or two to get us home semi-final, and this could have been that opportunity.
Yeah, it's possible. And look, now Fiji got their tails up. They host the Reds next week. Is anyone surprised if Fiji just put 50 on them, and have all the momentum at home? Like, it's really exciting to see. I was very disappointed with their first round, and I think a healthy Drua makes for a healthy Super Rugby Pacific.
Yeah, and I think one thing to take away from this game is that new facility that they have there at Bar is that's world class. And I don't know when they play there again and how often. I do know the Drua like to move their home games around. But one of the things we were pretty critical of last week or the other week on the podcast was in that game against the Hurricanes where it was torrential. That field, I think that was in Atoka, that field looked unsafe. And we were talking about at what point do you call that game off? That looked really bad. It looked bad before kickoff. In the warm up, they were splashing around. It didn't start well, and it got worse. But this week at Bar, that facility that looked world class. It was raining before kickoff. It cleared up and it dried up, and then it rained again in the second half. And even with the torrential rain in the second half, the ground looked like it drained much better. So to have that type of facility for Fiji rugby, that's awesome, because we're always talking about why Fiji can't host test matches in Fiji because they don't have the facilities. If they can start to build the facilities like this and have them there, that's great.
It'd be so good. And this, I know the Fiji test match stuff is its own kind of chat, but wouldn't it be amazing to see the Wallabies go over and have a game there? I would just absolutely love and want to go and be a part of an atmosphere like that, especially given the strong representation of players in the Wallabies with Fijian heritage. It would just be epic, and no one does a crowd like the Fijians in Super Rugby. It's easily the best vibe.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else you wanted to add to this one? I am conscious we're nearly at the hour mark. We have a little bit more we wanted to finish off with Six Nations.
No, I think that's good. We've probably very quickly rip around the scores from some of the other Super Rugby games. We've obviously got one game ongoing at the moment. No, it's just wrapped up, rather. So the Blues 43 smashing Moana Pacifica in the Battle of the 09. I don't think anyone's too surprised by this one. There's been a lot of heat this week between the two teams after Tana Umaga come out and gave some pretty frank comments about the way Moana's treated by their big brothers in Auckland. So bragging rights for sure.
What was the score? 43-7. Oof. And a red card as well to Moana in the first half. So tough game.
Yeah, proper thumping in that one. We've also had a really interesting game between the Crusaders and the Highlanders. Crusaders just getting it done in the end, 29-18. Very spicy, a lot of good little scraps in that game. It's well worth going back and having a look on the replay. And then I think that wraps us up, because we had the Canes playing the Force. The Chiefs have the bye. So Six Nations, Mitch, what an incredible.
Before we get to that, let's just quickly run around our tipping and fantasy results.
Yes, well remembered.
We do have people that are interested in that. So I think I'll say this just at this point in the podcast, like as Lachie just said, as we're recording it, the Blues game has just finished, so there might be some changes to these scores once things get updated. But at this point of the podcast, we've got Techie Munchers in first place in fantasy. 3266 is their points, with Smoky Clouds still in second place, so well done there to Simon. Cross to the fantasy front. This is probably what, with Super Brew, it's going to take a little while for them to update, but in the Scrumbags fantasy comp, we have TJ Humpenstuff still in first place, with Toombs in second place, and Jumping Tim Slim up into third. So I'm in fifth. I'm happy with that.
Way, good movement.
Yeah,
very good movement from you. He's up the top. It's almost like he hosts a podcast.
Oh, I've been tipping so badly these last few weeks. But anyway, Six Nations. Look, run us through that.
Oh, where do we even begin for Six Nations? Like, I thought we had a pretty good round of Super Rugby, but Six Nations has absolutely blown it out of the water. So, for a bit of context, 3 teams were still in the mix for round 5. The lay of the ladder was favouring France. They were equal with, I believe, Ireland or Scotland. I'm pretty sure Ireland, but basically the schedule went Ireland hosts Scotland, and whoever lost that game was out of the running. Whoever won that game had to wait and see if France beat England, and that would determine it. So it went down to the wire. It was just incredible scenes. So at the Aviva, a really tight encounter then blew out late. It was Ireland getting the chocolates over Scotland, I think 43-21 at the end. So they got the bonus point when they put themselves in the best possible position. Not a lot of people were too engaged with the middle game, but it was important, especially for Wales fans, because they finally got the monkey off their back. Their first win at Six Nations in 3 years. They beat Italy 31-17, and
can you believe
flatters
that
the Italians.
Stat? Like, I heard that stat last night leading into this game, and I was like, no way has Wales not won a game in the Six Nations in 3 years. Like, how bad have they been?
Which is crazy, because they won a Six Nations in 2021, I'm pretty sure. Like, they just fell off a cliff after the 2023 World Cup in particular. So it's huge for them. Like, didn't really affect the outcome of the ladder. They were always going to finish bottom. Italy still finished 4th after the final game, but great scenes with the Welsh finally starting to click and show a bit of ticker at home as well. So good for them. But I don't even know where to begin. This decider, there was Le Cranche, France hosting England at Stade de France. For starters, I don't know what World Rugby's thing around colour blindness is, but the French run out in pale blue jerseys against England's white after talking about making things more easy to see. It was
accessible.
It was hard to cop that, to be honest, that argument. I had no idea who was going where. But
yeah, I thought it was really interesting in some of the try replays with the what do they call it, the like eagle cam that goes over the top. You could not tell the difference from anyone on the field other than the referee in that angle.
It was crazy. It was crazy because the shorts, like the French were wearing blue shorts, red socks, but like you could not tell apart like any of the highlight stuff. It would have been infuriating for the man in the middle. But we're aside from the fact that this was probably the best game of rugby this season, I would hesitate to say. France 48, England 46, and it all came down to a penalty goal in the 83rd minute from Tommy Ramos, about 45 metres out. It was just ludicrous scenes. The lead changed hands, I think, 5 times. And England, I thought, had this in the bag. You've chatted to me about this just pre-record, Mitch. But like they score in the 77th minute to take the lead through Tommy Freeman after this incredible battle. And then the last 3 minutes, England completely lose the plot and give France the platform to break Irish hearts because they're all rooting for England after getting up over Scotland. But England, like they lost it probably 3 times in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, they shit the bed. Like there's no two ways about it. They shit the bed. So if you haven't watched it, Henry Pollock, love him or hate him, English fans are hating him right now. So if he goes from hero to villain very quickly, in the 79th minute, I think it was, he gets a turnover. So he rips the ball out of a tackle with a minute left on the clock, runs wide, makes a semi-break. In doing that, gets tackled and throws the ball, tries to just offload it. When you're up by 2 points and there's a minute left on the clock, it's probably not the time to push an offload. Ball goes forward. The England, I think it was the winger, comes through and tries to like fly kick the ball alive. Ends up being turned over to France, and France hold on to it from that point. Go a minute of just slow pick and drive until captain Maro Itoje gives away the lowest ever high tackle ever recorded on a rugby field for Thomas Ramos to again get a full-on penalty, kick the match-winning penalty, and win by, 2 points at that point? Yeah, 48-46. Like, go back and watch those minutes as an English fan. You must be just screaming at the TV of like, just hold the bloody ball. Do not force an offload. Do not try and kick the ball. Take the contact. Hold it for 30 seconds, kick it out, you win the game, Ireland win the Six Nations. Instead, the complete opposite happens.
Yeah, well, it was crazy because not only did they like save themselves and then give it away in the 79th, but like Jack Van Portfleet in the 78th minute just box kicks it straight to Mathieu Jalibert, who line breaks and immediately puts the English under pressure again, which leads to the Pollock turnover. Like England just lost their head entirely. And the last thing around like Maritoje's head high. So he was actually penalised twice. There was also a spot for a deliberate knock on. So the captain has lost his head. And that's probably reflective of England's performance as well.
And then also like stands there and argues with the referee for a good minute or two about the point of where they're kicking it. Like if that was, we were saying before we hit record, like Ben O'Keefe in the Waratahs game, like I don't know what happened, but someone must have said something like, Ben, your shorts are too tight or something, because he got offended by both teams. Because there was like 3 times where just a scrum happens and they stand up and have like the littlest of argy-bargies, and he marches both teams at different times, 10 meters. Like Maro Itoje nearly just gave the Six Nations to France by arguing to the point where they could have marched him 10 meters and made the kick that much easier.
Yeah, I mean, and Thomas Ramos still made it look so easy. Like cool as a cucumber. I don't back anyone in Australian rugby right now to nail that kick under such high pressure. And Ramos, 45 on the angle, it never looked like missing, and it cleared the bar by about 10 meters. So absolute scenes. France win it 48-46. Mitch.
And also, can I just highlight as well, like, just before we get to him, just on that point of of England trying their best to lose this game, Ollie Chessum in the 50th minute runs away, gets a great intercept, runs 60 meters to score a try, and puts it down 10 meters from the sideline. Run it under the goals. Run it under the sticks, you idiot, because they missed the conversion and he had no one around him. 2 extra points there, and at the end of the game there, that changes heaps.
It does. And was that the same try as Finn Smith drop kicking the conversion? Because there was an amazing moment in this game.
Yeah, I don't think, because he nailed that.
But
this try
incredible.
That Chessum scores, he missed it.
So maybe that was in the first half, but that was just ridiculous. So this Chessum goes over, scores, but the I'm trying to find exactly where it was in this game. Basically, it's out on the sideline. Ball falls off the tee. The French start charging up, and Finn Smith, cool as a cucumber. Oh, it was after the Alex Coles try. In the first half, and he just picks it up from the side and drop kicks it like it's sevens, and it was the sweetest of strikes. So how important that was in the context of the game too, to keep them in it. But you've nailed it about Chessum going close to the sticks. He was a runaway. He was really good in that game, Ollie Chessum. He brought the mongrel that England needed, but they could not contain LBB. He is prolific in a way that we have not seen a try scorer in world rugby for some time. 4 tries in this game He, I think, is now 29 tries from 22 appearances or something like that. He's well ahead of a try a game. Like he is already en route to catching and smashing Will Jordan if he continues like this. And he's tiny. He's this tiny little dude. He's like Cheslin Colby with less muscle. And he just plays the game so beautifully. The French back line at the moment is just a joy to watch.
I think if there's only one thing to say, like there's a lot to be said of the way that our game is being played at the moment in world rugby across the board, like with the changes to the back three and the escorting rules and all kinds of stuff. But the one thing that our game is excelling at the moment is we're in the winger era. Like looking across the world, Cheslin Colby, Bien Barry, Max Jorgensen, like these guys are scoring ridiculous tries. And it feels like this is their game at the moment. The way that the game is being played across the world rugby, we've got wingers scoring tries from nothing. And it makes me so excited to think of a World Cup next year in Australia when we're going to have all of these wingers. I mean, even the Nations Championship this year is going to be good. And having all of these guys going at each other, scoring tries where they shouldn't be and doing all kinds of things. Let's just make sure that when these wingers score tries, jumping over the top and grounding balls, we're not talking about did they ground it in touch or not. Just give him the try and let's get on with it.
I knew you'd find a way to get it in there. But you're so right with the World Cup. Like, think about the situation we could see, even Nations Championship coming up. Like, we have Louis Bielbarré coming and playing at Suncorp. We have Monty Ioane and Lewis Liner playing over in Perth for Ireland. You've got James Lowe, Hugo Keenan, all these incredible backline stars. I want exciting finishes. I want these flyers to strut their stuff, and we get to roll out Jorgensen, Suaalii, all these players coming through. Peach, hopefully, when he's back in the mix.
Peach.
Tool, that was another big loss for the Brumbies as well. I think you're bang on. The age of the winger is upon us, and long may it reign.
To make this World Cup the best it possibly can be, let's change the law. Like if you put the ball on the chalk of the try line outside, like in the field of play, it's a try. If you put the ball on the try line, it's in. Let's make that rule all around the dead ball. Unless you put the ball outside that line and it's out, fair enough. But let's make the chalk line in the dead ball in goal. Let's say you put the ball on the line, it's a try.
Ooh, so that area is different to the sideline.
Yeah, the sideline's out. Because who's scoring tries on the sideline?
But in the goal. So what about the dead ball line?
Yeah, it's in.
It's still in. So any part that's just touching the dead ball line,
because then we can open ourselves up to those situations where the ball's rolling dead and you've got two players diving at it, and then we can go to that situation of you've still got 20 centimeters of extra placement.
20 centimeters of line.
I don't know. What is the
line? Oh my God, I thought it was like 5 to 10 centimeters. They were talking about how thick they'd painted them at Suncorp post game. So I think there's a bit of mayonnaise on those. But it'd be really interesting. It would certainly create opportunities for kicks in behind the line. Do we do more contestable in the air, sort of in that try zone? You know what it's like. It's like molasses changing laws in rugby at the moment. But that'd certainly be something interesting to have a look at. Mitch, at the risk of cutting off our attempts to change the world of rugby, very quickly on the Aussie Sevens, who are in action in the inaugural New York event. So if you've got Stan, if you're tuning in via rugby.com.au or however you're getting your Sevens results, Aussies have done excellently on day one. So they both clean swept through their pools. The Aussie men smashed France 24-0. They beat the Kiwis 12-7, and then they beat South Africa. So they are through to a semi-final against Fiji. So take a breath there before that one. And the Aussie girls have the same matchup. They're going to take on Fijiana in their semi-final. They beat the Japanese 47-7, smashed Canada 40-0, and beat the States in a thriller 26-19. So fingers and toes crossed for our Aussies in New York. It would be incredible to see them break through for a title in the Big Apple.
Yeah, how much is this Sevens tournament just being everyone plays for the chance to lose to New Zealand in the final, particularly in the women's game? This will be the fourth stop on the World Series of 25-26, and I think all of them have been Australia, particularly for the women's Australia-New Zealand finals, and we're yet to win one.
No, we won in Cape Town, but it has been one-sided. I'll give you that the Aussie girls, I think, are 1-4 in finals against New Zealand this year. So
Okay, so we won one.
We've won one. We'll take that. But like, it's just honestly, it has just been the Georgia Miller show. Like, she is so unbelievably far ahead of any other player in World Sevens at the moment. She does things in finals that just break Australia. So if they find a way to somehow contain her, they'll start winning these games. But it's very much rinse and repeat. The Aussies looking for another crack in a final. It'd be so great to see them have a go over in New York. But Fiji, a big hurdle. So thinking about Aussie Sevens over there in America.
Yep. So tune into that and make sure you subscribe to Patreon. We might try and line up an interview for extra time this week. We'll see how we go there. But let's end the podcast there, Lachie, because I'm wearing this Queensland Reds jersey. I think I'm getting a rash. It's not feeling too good. I got to get it off.
It's a heat rash because you look so good. You're looking so hot right now. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Scrumbags. We'll catch you next week or midweek for a little bit of extra time. Till then, bye.
Bye.
We're not going to France for the croissants.